If you've been here since this morning, you have heard this welcome over and over. But just to do due diligence, and for anybody who may have just arrived, I will do this as well. So hello, and a warm welcome to South Asian Literature and Art Festival, or SALA, as it's popularly known, proudly produced by Art Forum SF. This festival is special because of you, because you chose to be here to listen and to celebrate South Asian voices. A heartfelt thank you to all our sponsors for making this literature and art festival a reality. Their dedication to supporting writers, artists, and the exchange of ideas keeps creativity alive in our community. Quick housekeeping rules. Please silence your phones and no recordings. Everything will be on YouTube later, so you can relive the brilliance at your own pace. Also, please make sure that you do not leave any belongings or water bottles behind. There will be a 15-minute Q&A after the session, followed by book signing by the authors in the Florence Moore courtyard by the bookstore. And lastly, as a volunteer-run organization, we at SALA are deeply grateful to all our volunteers, without whose support none of this would be possible. So let's dive in, open our hearts and minds, and enjoy the stories that remind us how art connects us all. The topic of today's discussion is tasting the new Diaspora kitchen. Our panelists are Khushbu Shah, Amisha Gurbani, Pooja Bavishi, and Hetal Vasavada. They are in conversation with our moderator, Sanjog Singh. Sanjog Singh and her family moved to the San Francisco Bay Area in 1987, and soon after, Sanjog's mother, Sukhi Singh, started a venture, Sukhi's Gourmet Indian Foods. Sanjog got her early introduction to the food business as part-time help in the family business. After finishing her schooling at UC Berkeley, Sanjog ventured out in the world of consulting and marketing, only to return in 2006 to join her mother full-time. Sanjog Singh has spent the last 17 years in marketing at Sukhi's Gourmet Indian Foods and seen the company through its transformation from a family-run business to a nationally recognized consumer packaged goods company, or CPG. And with that, let's welcome them all with a nice round of applause. I'll hand my mic to you all.
Thank you, everyone. It's just so wonderful to be in community with everyone here. This is one of my favorite events of the year. And because of Mom and my mom, Sukhi, who's here in the audience, and her accomplishments, I get a chance to do this, and I love doing this. So I love that. So thank you all for coming here today. I'm going to start off with introductions, and then we'll go into some questions and answers. I will ask the questions, and then we'll see where the discussion goes. And then we'll end with a little rapid fire, and then Q&A from all of you, and all the questions that rise up in your minds as we talk about this. So I'm going to start with Pooja. Pooja's journey began in front of the TV set, watching a white chocolate cheesecake come to life. Little did the 9-year-old know that her craving for sweetness would one day turn into an obsession with spice, like orange dancing with fennel, and that this balance would define her signature. After a thriving career in public policy, she listened to the inside voice calling her to desserts, armed herself with an MBA, and chartered her foray into the food business. The breakthrough came not from baked goods, as she first imagined, but from ice cream. At a Friendsgiving, when her make-do focus group immediately fell in love with her Malai-infused creations. What began as a dream is now Malai, a brand with 3 thriving scoop shops, distributions nationally, and a cookbook of nearly 100 recipes capturing her bold, joyful, and spice-laden approach to frozen desserts. Please join me in welcoming Pooja Bavishi. And across state borders, another 9-year-old was binging on the Food Network and rolling out puris besides her mama. Khushbu Shah grew up savoring both the joy of cooking and the creativity of reimagining food, turning trendy favorites like dumplings into vegetarian versions and exploring the wholesome sustenance of what she now calls Amrikan cuisine. The hustle of New York gave her a taste of reinvention, and a single English professor who saw her gift for writing nudged her onto a new path. What began as a dream of becoming a doctor transformed into a career as one of the country's most dynamic food writers. The youngest and the first person of color to serve as restaurant editor at Food and Wine, and now the author of Amrikan, 125 recipes from the Indian American diaspora, please welcome Khushbu Shah. And then continents away, in the bustling metropolis of India, Mumbai, another Gujarati girl was rolling out rotis by her mama's side. Her mother, another kitchen maverick, bringing flavors from Uganda to India. And then, what Amisha here did after moving to the US in her 20s, she balanced a career in technology with her love for the kitchen, eventually launching the Jam Lab, her online blog celebrating vibrant vegetarian recipes. The endeavor forced her to learn food photography, an identity that deserves its own mention. Her culinary vision blossomed into a cookbook, Mumbai Modern, vegetarian recipes inspired by Indian roots and California cuisine. Half of the pictures that are in that book have been shot by Amisha. After the book hit the top 10 on the San Francisco Chronicle's bestseller list, she began writing a bi-weekly food column. And today she thrives as a cookbook author, food writer, and influencer with 75,000 Instagram followers, sharing the joy and creativity and cultural fusion of her cooking. Please welcome Amisha Gurbani. And then we have our lovely new, the most popular influencer of the Bay Area who came on this morning. So please welcome Hetal Vasavada. Hetal's story began in a New Jersey kitchen where Diwali sweets and Gujarati flavors were part of everyday life. She took a very different path at first, studying biochemistry and working in labs, when her chemistry teacher told her that she would get really good at labs if she learned how to bake. That and a chance on MasterChef revealed that her true laboratory was always going to be the kitchen. From there, she built Milk and Cardamom, first a blog, then a cookbook where jaggery, cardamom, and saffron found their ways into cheesecake, cookies, and cakes. Her latest book, Desi Bakes, carries that same spirit. Today, from her Bay Area home bakery and pop-ups, she shares sweets that are at once nostalgic and new. Desserts that tell the story of her Gujarati roots, her scientific precision, and her creative heart. Please welcome Hetal Vasavada. So I'd like to start this conversation with thinking about, what cookbooks maybe used to be and what they are. They're so much more than a recipe. It's a nostalgia, it's a memory, a story. What has it been in your life, and how do you come about authoring a cookbook? And I'd like to start with you, Amisha.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Sorry, can you repeat the question?
So I want to understand, no, and that's okay. I want to understand, a cookbook is so much. It's stories, it's nostalgia, it's memory. How did this cookbook come into your life, and what does it really involve?
So I've been cooking with my mom since I was 9 years old. As Sanjog mentioned, cooking, beloing rotis with my mom, and it was the sweetest memory I have of holding her sari, the pallu of her sari, and just like watching her. Sorry, I get emotional when I talk about it.
Yeah.
Sorry. She passed in 2007, and the cookbook was a way to dedicate and just a dedication to her and the legacy that she's left for me and my brother. And I wanted to pass it on to my kids. And that was the biggest thing. It was a passion project for me that I wanted to showcase. And she was like a whirlwind in the kitchen. She could cook for like 50 people in 2 hours. Of course, there was a dishwasher. A person washing dishes in India. We don't have that here. Don't have the luxury over here. But she could make like so many dishes, like 10, 15 dishes in 2 hours for 50 people within no time. And she has always been my inspiration. And the way she used to cook was just mind-blowing. I loved watching her in the kitchen and putting spices. There was no measurements at that time. You just put like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. That's how she taught me cooking. And then when I had to transform those recipes into the cookbook, it was a difficult task. It's been a joy putting the cookbook together and seeing people recreate recipes from it. Over and over again, people DMing me, messaging me, saying that we made this for a family or we made this for a party, and it's been so well received. Thank you so much for this wonderful cookbook that you've put out there, and that's the biggest joy.
Lovely. Thank you. Pooja, would you like to?
Sure. I think that my relationship with cookbooks is quite similar. I love cookbooks. I have a huge cookbook collection, including the 3 authors that are up here. I'm a big fan of theirs, and they're my friends. And I love the storytelling behind recipes. But for me, I wrote a cookbook for a very different reason, right? I have a business. We are an East Coast-based company with ambitions to grow even further. And I started my ice cream company. Honestly, I started my ice cream company as a way to highlight the flavors that I grew up with as a first-generation Indian American in something very Americana, like ice cream. And it was kind of the blending of my hybrid cultures into one product. And it started in my Manhattan apartment. And I was making it in batches of 1 quart at a time and selling them at food fairs in New York City. But every single flavor that I created was super intentional, and there was a story behind it. So we're such a story-driven brand that it was very natural to translate that into a cookbook. And I love the idea that something that's so story-driven and something that started in my apartment 10 years ago went back to people's homes, and people could recreate these flavors that they love, whether they know the brand or not, that there's a familiarity with it. And to kind of in addition to that, kind of change the way the pantry looks, right? And make it much more mainstream with Indian spices and Indian flavorings. So really it was an extension of the company that I created, but still wanted to incorporate all of the things that make cookbooks so special. And the reason why people love cookbooks is to read those stories and to become a part of someone's life. And that's what I'm hoping that Malai did too.
Lovely. Thank you. Go ahead.
Mine is sort of a 2-part thing. One, I was just really sick of people saying this misconception that Indian food is deeply complicated and that you would have to travel really far to get all the crazy, quote unquote exotic ingredients when you can get garam masala at Target at this point. So, and people, didn't believe me also that you can make Indian food with Bisquick and peanut butter and all these adaptations, that we've had in the Indian American kitchen. And then secondly, I was also really sick of just calling my mom and trying to get recipes over the phone where she wouldn't measure anything. I stole a couple of her recipes for this book, and now she's almost trained like a Pavlovian dog. I walk into the kitchen and she has measuring cups out, and I'm like, this is great. So that's been a really nice benefit. But yeah, my book really, I wanted to serve, to break a lot of these misconceptions around Indian food, that it was so spicy, that everything is curry, and that it's really complicated. And so that was really important for me to put that together, and to really, all the other South Asian diasporas I feel are really well documented, British Indian food, Trinidadian Indian food, the Caribbean Indian diaspora. It's very clear what that identity is. And as a food writer who covers both domestic and international food, I saw this really clear thread of that Indian food in America had its own unique identity, but no one had quite put that together in a singular book to really point that out. I thought someone would beat me to it, but no one was writing it, so I was all right, I guess it's my turn to put that together. Yeah.
For me, my cookbook came to me because, really out of jealousy, I guess, because I grew up in a primarily Italian neighborhood in Jersey, and all my friends had Nona's Christmas cookie recipes and cake, or you make this auntie's potato salad for this picnic, whatever. I didn't have any of that. I had no written recipes to go back to. There was no written history of any of those recipes. But I knew I wanted to leave something for my daughter. Whenever there was a school project where we had to like learn about our family tree, sadly, none of the women in my family, other than up to past my great grandmother, I don't know their names. They were never recorded. Mm-hmm. I don't know them. I don't know what they did. I don't know what they cooked. I know nothing about them. And I wanted to leave something behind for my daughter so that, you know, in the future when I'm gone and she misses me, she can make a recipe that's consistent and it'll be exactly how I made it, and she can make it for her kid and they can make it for their kid. And it's a recorded history of my love and care and, you know, the type of food that I make for my family. It was purely I truly didn't think anyone was going to buy my cookbook, my first one. I did not expect it to resonate with as many people as it did. But what I'm learning is, like Khushbu said, that there is a Indian American diaspora that is large and growing up and can relate to these feelings of like getting carvel cake for their birthday, but also having siro at the mandir for prasad. And like those both feel nostalgic to us. So that is my audience, and that's going to be my kid.
That's lovely. I think you bring up a really good point. Is this has been your platform of interacting and carrying on the generational legacy. You yourself have 130,000 followers on Instagram, so you are in touch and interacting with that next generation. So as a follow-up question, you know, this is what you guys put out there with your cookbooks. You had intention, you had a goal and a focus. What has been the surprising stories that you're hearing back from your audience as to like how this is settling into them? What does it mean to them, and what does it bring to their life?
Yeah. I've had some like amazing and heartfelt stories. The stories we hear from people who make our dishes, they're the reason we continue to create recipes. They're the reason why we continue going back into the kitchen and making more. I've had one where, you know, a woman messaged me and told me, you know, my mother passed away last year and this is my first Diwali without her. My mom would make gulab jamun every year, but I don't know how to make it. It's too complicated. So I made your cake from the cookbook, and my house smells like my mom was cooking in it. Mm. And, you know, she sent me a picture of her mom's photo with the mala and like the gulab jamun cake they had put. And, you know, these are all memories. There's also this is crazy to me. There's a generation, like Gen Z kids and Alpha kids, that are growing up with my gulab jamun cake as their Diwali dessert. Yeah. Like their families make it every single year. And that is like their food memory they're growing up with, which blows my mind.
That's amazing.
And like recently I got a wedding invitation. It was a woman, she's white, and she's marrying a Gujarati guy. And she messaged me and said, you know, you unknowingly have been a big part of my relationship, and I want to send you a wedding invitation because I've been cooking your recipes for my fiance and his family, and actually I'm making your cakes for my wedding cake. And I think,
great.
It's in Virginia. Yeah. I sent her some goodies. But I think food is a great way to connect, and you just never know. And these are the people that have just messaged us. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people that cook out of our books that don't say anything to us, but maybe it's like a quick meal. Like,
yeah.
I cook out of all 3 of their books on a fairly regular basis, and I don't always message and say, I made this out of your book. But it's a really nice thing. So if you do cook out of someone's book, I highly recommend messaging, letting them know, because it really is a deep motivation for us.
Yeah, Amisha, I'm going to actually jump to you because I know you bring not just recipes from India, but also recipes that you create here and from your mom's legacy of Uganda. So tell us how consumers have, you know, audience has resonated with that.
Yeah, it's been incredible. Like the DMs I get on Instagram all the time are incredible because people will message me that there's a corn curry in my cookbook. It's called makai paka, and it's a very Ugandan dish. So Gujaratis migrated to Uganda years ago, and for business purposes, like my grandfather, he migrated to my Nanaji, he migrated to Uganda years ago, and the Gujaratis over there took the African dish the corn curry and Indianized it by putting masalas in it. And it's called Makai Paka. And I don't know how many people have made that recipe. And I get so many DMs just for that recipe saying that we made your corn curry and it reminded me of my days in Africa. So it's mind-blowing to see, like, my family, my mom, she was born in Uganda. She moved to Mumbai and got married to my dad. I was born in Mumbai and I moved over here. So it's been like
Crossing borders.
Crossing borders,
Yeah.
literally crossing borders for my mother and for myself.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing all those flavors together in my cookbook. I grew up in Mumbai, the heart of chaat, street food, you know, pav bhaji and all the fun things. And I grew up with that. I grew up with Frankie's. And I put all that in my cookbook with a flair of California. We are so blessed over here in California with fresh fruit and fresh vegetables. The farmer's market is my zen. And taking all those produce and putting it into recipes, that's my jam.
Lovely.
Yeah.
And then Khushbu, I know I've gone to your feedback online, and there's so many people that are doing so many different things, and it's raising all these questions and memories. And why don't you share some of that?
I think one of the craziest messages I've ever gotten is a woman who's like a military wife and is like located, she's white and is like located on a base somewhere kind of in the middle of nowhere, but really loves Indian food. And she got the book and wanted to do a cookbook club dinner where multiple of her friends cooked it. And her husband built her a new dining table for it, which was like, and she sent me a photo of the table. It's truly incredible. And that means a lot. Also, the biggest compliments I've gotten on this book, I really didn't expect any auntie to like my book, if I'm being honest, going into it, because the number of times my mom would like roll her eyes at something that I was putting in the book. And I remember one year I made the saag paneer lasagna from my book, which is just a completely deranged recipe from my brain. And I made it for Thanksgiving, and my mom pulls me aside and she goes, "Khushbu, this is actually good." And I was like, wow, I knew I made it. And I overheard her on the phone actually talking about my Nutella burfi recipe to my Masi. And she was like, "It's amazing. You know, you can reference the recipe and it works every time." And I was like, yes. You write things down, you test them, they work. I don't know, I've just gotten like so many crazy messages from unexpected places. There's a white lady in New Zealand that keeps cooking through my book. I don't know why a white lady in New Zealand is cooking through my book, but it's great. Or I get a lot of people with the mixed, like the interracial marriages, which is like very cool to me. Or even like I had a friend send me a text, and you know, she's Indian American, but she said, you know, she really cooks a lot of like French food and things like that, where there's a lot of cookbooks, there's a lot of references. But she's like, "Khushbu, I've always been afraid to cook Indian food because I've always been afraid to mess it up." And then I got your book, and I just felt like the directions were so kind of like gentle and in a way that I understood, that I like finally didn't feel afraid to make Indian food for the first time. And that means a lot. You know, the further we get from like, you know, as the generations continue, right? Food is always, it's sort of like the last remaining bridge to culture, and it's also the first bridge that you can build back. Language is a lot harder. Religion is complicated. A lot of these other traditions are a lot heavier, but food is something that, you know, and I want to help people like maintain that bridge or start to build that bridge back. That's really important to me. Yeah.
And Pooja, I know your book is fairly new out, but you have just brought your recipes that you are actually making in the stores to people's homes.
I know, is that silly? Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that like more than like people telling me that they've cooked from the book, I think that it's an extension of people. A lot of what Hetal said is that like, you know, like I grew up going to TCBY every single Friday night in the summer, and I would get the peanut butter parfait with the golden vanilla frozen yogurt. And, you know, I think it's so cool that like there's, you know, 4 different stores where people who may have not grown up the same way that I am are going into a Malai store and getting a tulsi chocolate chip or a carrot halwa scoop, and like that's what they're going to talk about when they're older. There's this, at our flagship location in Brooklyn, there's this little kid, his name is Luca, and he kind comes in every single summer day with a different adult, like a different grown-up. He has multiple sisters. He has his parents. He has both sides of his grandparents. And he walks in, and this actually was a couple of years ago, so we still had our offices in that store. And he walks in, and we all know him. And he walks in and he says hi. We all say hi to him. And the grown-up that he's with is just like, Luca, how do you know everyone? And he always gets the apricot mace. And one day I was like, Luca, why do you love the apricot mace so much? And he was like, because it tastes like marshmallows. And I love that, right? Like, I love that this spice, the outer lacings of a nutmeg that like has this like mellower flavor paired with apricot, which like, honestly, I love apricot because I love apricot puree, and like, you know, like it's very like sophisticated, resonates with this 5-year-old kid who thinks it tastes like marshmallows, and that's what he gets every single day. And like, it's just like, it's such a gratifying feeling that like food is a bridge, but also it like infiltrates our lives in a way that like we are super aware of and super unaware of at the same time. And you know how like people say like hair holds memory? Like I really think that like we're absorbing all of these memories from food at all times, and it like pops up in places and in situations that you don't even think about. And it's so gratifying to know that we're all a part of someone's food memories.
So I think that's something you all brought up, right? Like how you're trying to be a part of the future's food memories. What is that one thing in your past that you now get to bring out and share on? Like your favorite recipe or favorite nostalgic recipe, and then what moment or memory does it bring up in you guys? And you guys can go, whoever wants to go first.
I mean, I literally get to do that every single day because Malai is just like an extension of who I am. And I get to like say that like, this is what I remember. And so I'm going to turn it into ice cream. I think the one that like people really resonate with, I mean, there's so many that people resonate with, but we have a sweet roti and ghee. And when me and my sister were younger and my mom would make traditional Gujarati food that we didn't appreciate at the time, as everyone can relate to. My mom would make this thing that we called churmu, but I know, you guys called it something else. We called it churmu, which was just like crumbled up roti with jaggery and ghee. She would toast the roti first, and we would have a bowl full of that, like a bowl full of dessert for dinner, because we were being brats, like kind of amazing, right? And it is such a deep flavor memory for me, and like it is, like I very rarely eat it now, but if I do have it, it's so nostalgic. It like brings back like me being a kid, and we turn that into an ice cream flavor. So we make a roti flavored ice cream, and my kitchen team like literally makes churmu and sprinkles it in, and people go nuts over it. Like it doesn't matter if they grew up with it or not. It's just like it's bread, butter, sugar. And there's something so nostalgic about that, and I'm so happy to share that with so many people.
That's beautiful. Amisha, do you want to go? Yeah.
One of my favorite recipes in the cookbook is my mom's biscuits. It's called my mom's famous biscuits because there's a beautiful story associated with it. My nani, she was 16 or 17 when she got married to my grandfather, and they moved to Uganda. And they had a helper who taught her how to make biscuits, an African helper who taught her how to make biscuits. She had this little oven, a Siemens white oven, that's what it was in the 60s and or 50s. And she used to bake these biscuits, which she learned from the helper in that oven. She taught her 3 daughters. One of them was my mom. And then when they migrated to Mumbai in the 1970s, the oven came with them on the ship. And then my mom started using that oven after she got married. And she used to bake our cakes in it, biscuits in it. And then she started a biscuit business. A cookie business with different flavors. And that became like our holiday traditions, Diwali traditions. She used to make it for Diwali and distribute it to friends and family. She started a business out of it, and she sold lots of cookies that way, or biscuits. And then I started doing the same when I moved to the US. And I make the same biscuits. My family loves it. I give it to friends and family. And it's become a very special recipe that is like centuries old now, or not centuries, but whatever, decades old.
Yeah. Lovely.
Mine might be the cereal no cerdo in my book, which I think was the moment when I really put it together, what Indian American food really was. Because I don't know, woke up one day and I was like, oh, my mom didn't grow up eating Fruit Loops and cornflakes and Kellogg's Gray, and whatever. But it's such a memory for me that on like Sundays I would, come down like sleepily, and like my mom was already, taking all of the leftover cereals from the pantry and like putting them in this like large steel pot to make like cerdo, but with all this leftover breakfast cereal. Fruit Loops, I think, are like a rogue addition on her end. I've never really seen it anywhere else, but I really like it in there. It adds like a really nice pop of sweetness. And that's one of my favorite dishes. It's just so fun, sweet, salty, raisins, peanuts. And I mean, everyone has their own cerdo recipes, but that one, it's like particularly a favorite of mine. Yeah.
I love a good cereal and a cerdo. Yeah. My mom would do it with Kix. It's my favorite. Yes. So from my first cookbook, the recipe that I think really just I made a lot, everyone out in the world made a lot, is my gulab jamun bundt cake. And that memory was actually my, I have a kaki. So I grew up in a joint family. My entire life, my kakas and my masis, they all lived with us at one point or another. So my house had like between 10 and like 18 people in it at any given moment, depending on who was living with us. And when my Shobna Kaki lived with us, she would make the best gulab jamun. They were phenomenal. And I called her because I was going to put a regular gulab jamun recipe in my first cookbook. And I tried it and it didn't work. And then I tried it and it blew up in the oil, or like I just couldn't get it right. And then I was like, there's got to be another way. And I turned it into a cake. And it worked. And the flavors were still very reminiscent of like my kaki's gulab jamun. But man, I think it just brings a lot of like, it just reminds me of like me being a little kid and eating them and my kaki like running after me and yelling at me. The second cookbook was a lot more newer things I didn't truly grow up with too often. There's just things that like my brain came up with. And I have a tender coconut cream pie. So the inspiration was Naturals has that tender coconut ice cream with like chunks of like malai in it, like the coconut malai. And I loved it. I had it when I went to Ahmedabad, and it was phenomenal. And my husband's from Alabama, so he is in the land of pies and heavy desserts, especially cream-based pies and custard-based pies, and that's what he loves. So I turned this into a eggless custard with chopped up pieces of coconut, and it is my favorite recipe from my cookbook, and it's also my husband's. Like every year for his birthday, he wants it. When I was testing it, he ate no less than 7 pies just on his own. It's just a favorite recipe, and I know that that's gonna be now like, for Ilara, this is Dad's birthday pie.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what the next question kind of comes into, that creative process, right? As you guys have all done over 100, 150 recipes in this realm, what does your creative process look like? And what is the challenge in sort of capturing it on paper when it becomes like, where does it start from and where it needs to end up?
So I start with going out to eat a lot, trying new things, just exploring, right? And then sleeping. And I come up with my best ideas either sleeping or in the shower, and I'll wake up and I have like a list that's probably like 200 deep on my like notes app of like all these ideas I've come up with. And sometimes they're stupid and silly. Like I have a series right now called Unhinged Recipe Ideas, where like I came up with these recipe ideas, but I never made them because they sound crazy. But I'll write them regardless if I think it's crazy or not, and then I'll come back to it and maybe I reiterate it or not. And then I start doing research. So then I look at, okay, what are other recipes that are similar? What is the basis of, like, an example? I recently did a hawa bun herde pickle, dill pickle. Or what I call in Gujarati, pad pil dill pickles. It sounds crazy, but the salty, I had gone to a burgers restaurant and they had pickles and they tasted like how unheard to me. And I was like, what if I turn these into a pickle? So I came up with the idea. I did my research, found out you can make, 2 different types of fermentations. You can do a brine and you can do a lacto fermentation. Okay, and then what are the percentages of salt to make it a sour pickle? Do I want a half sour pickle? And then going into the science of it and understanding what are the different routes and directions I can take this, and then testing that, making a conclusion, and then moving on to the next version. So each recipe that I create, I usually do between 2 and 5 versions until I get to a final one that I'm happy with. And to me, texture is important and flavor is important. I'm never gonna make something like, I've been asked to do an eggless tres leches cake forever, and I've tried. Every time the texture is way off, and I'm just not gonna share the recipe because it just isn't correct. And until I can find a way to replicate the right texture, I'm not gonna share it. So I think that's a big part of it.
And I think your background in science really informs this like sort of strategic way of going about it. Khushbu, do you want to? Yeah.
Hetal is a way more patient recipe developer than I am. Sometimes I'm a one-hit wonder. I think about what I want, like what the end goal to be, and then I work backwards. I like write out what I think the recipe is going to be. I test it, and then if it works, great. I move on with my life, and if it doesn't, and then I go back and like tweak what might need to be tweaked. And then I had, then obviously you get your recipes tested either professionally or by volunteers in the cookbook process if you're writing a good cookbook. And so then people will catch things in that process if it doesn't make sense, if you've written something out, something's confusing. But I did have one recipe. It's a mango tres leches, and I didn't want to whip egg whites, and so I was trying to go a roundabout way on that one. I think I tested that recipe actually 23 times, and now I can never eat it again. But it's in the book if you want it. It's pretty good.
All right, great.
I think my process is completely different than actual recipe writers who you see on stage with me right now. This process was very hard for me. Writing a cookbook is very unlike running a business, and it was hard for me to do both. And so I learned a lot. I tried to approach it the way I would approach like any new flavor for Malai, which is like, kind of like Khushbu, like what do I want at the end, and kind of like, but like ice cream's very forgiving, and there's more than just ice cream in this recipe book. So it taught me to be a lot more patient. But I will say that the 2 recipes that both Hetal and Khushbu just referenced, the tender coconut cream pie and the mango tres leches, they worked with Malai to create it into ice cream. So that I can do. But everything else is very hard for me.
For me, recipe testing, I take textures, flavors into consideration. For me, it's about spices and how do I incorporate spices with the fruits and vegetables that I get from the farmer's market, with my culture. So I'm like thinking of all these different angles and how to incorporate it and make it into something cohesive that resonates with my audience and resonates with me and resonates with my family and friends. So I'm thinking about all these different angles, and usually, same like Hetal, I come up with these ideas in the middle of the night, and I'm writing them on my phone, or like in the bathroom, or when I'm going for a walk, and suddenly this idea will pop up in my mind, and I'm like, I need to note it down, and I need to like test it out. And I think in my cookbook, there's a mango Shrikant tart, which I made 7 times. It took me so long to figure it out. I tried to make it eggless. I tried agar-agar, but the texture is just not smooth and soft. And many people have asked me, can I use agar? I said, you can use agar-agar, but it's not going to be the same. So I would say that stick to the recipe that's in the cookbook. So.
Great. Okay, one last question, and then we're going to move into rapid fire round. So you have all these people here, and we're going to go buy the cookbook, because you all are, right? We're all going to go buy this cookbook. Tell us the one recipe that we should start with if we're coming into your world and your recipes.
So my cookbook has a realm of recipes from like easy to medium to hard. The easiest recipe is Batetano Shak, which is a potato curry. Many people have asked me, which recipe should I start with? So many non-Indians have asked me, what recipe should I start with? I tell them Batetano Shak or potato curry, because you put it into everything into a pot. It's ready in 20 minutes, and you have dinner ready. Eat it with naan or rice or whatever you want to, but it's easy.
I think that the recipe to start, so we have an entire chapter in our book called Ice Cream Desserts, which is fabulous. It's my favorite chapter if I'm allowed to pick one. And it combines ice cream. You can buy the ice cream and turn it into a fabulous dessert. But there's one called the frozen chocolate biscuit cake where you literally take melted ice cream and you get like store-bought biscuits, or you can buy Amisha's, and turn it into this like frozen fabulousness, deliciousness. But the sleeper hit, I will say, is a spiced honey in the topping section. You can eat it with ice cream, obviously, but you can eat it with cheese and other savory things.
I would say either the chili cheese toast, which is like so good to get any novice cook into, and is always like a very impressive thing if you're hosting people, because you can serve it with chai. It's great for like a brunch spread. It's very easy, very flexible too, to kind of whatever you have, whatever bread you like. But also, I will keep going back to the saag paneer lasagna, or lasagna as I call it. If you make it, you will win friends for life. I promise you. It has become a multiple people's Thanksgiving traditions, the volley traditions. Yeah, I can't, like, I'm literally a genius for that one, and for that one only. But but it's like, it's actually like really brilliant.
Okay. If you're going to start with my first book, it would obviously be the gulab jamun bundt cake, but a good sleeper hit also is, the most popular ones would be, I have a rabdi tres leches cake that's pretty popular. And then the really easiest thing is I have a masala chai panna cotta in my second book. It's just cream, cha, and agar, and that's it. And it's super easy to make. And then I have another very simple one, which is a passion fruit shortbread biscuit. You just crumble it all with your hands. You don't need a mixer or anything special. The recipe's forgiving in the sense that if you're not using a scale, it's okay. But if you are baking, please use a scale. It will fix probably 90% of your problems. Like if you ever had cookies that didn't like melt down, it's probably because you had too much flour, the ratios are off, use a scale. But yeah, those are two really easy, forgiving recipes.
Great. Okay, we're going to do a quick rapid fire round. And maybe I'll just call out the person and ask the question, then we can move the questions around. So, all right, Khushbu. Favorite crossover food from another culture?
Oh, what do you mean by crossover?
Okay, you can, crossover, like something that, you brought into your book from another culture. A format.
Oh, don't make me say lasagna.
Okay, this is not
again.
rapid fire anymore.
I'm just gonna say lasagna.
Okay.
No, I have a Mexican pizza recipe in my book because Taco Bell is Indian food at this point. So,
all right,
yeah,
it's your favorite, so it's good. All right, recipe. Okay, Pooja. Recipe you've never shared online but secretly love. Is this not rapid fire?
No, this is not rapid fire. This is
all right. Okay, let's just
chai or coffee. Chai.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's start this right. Sweet or savory? Go.
Oh God, that's too difficult to
Oh my
choose.
God.
I'm
Oh my God, you
Gujarati.
guys.
I love sweet and savory.
All right. Okay, go. Just go. One question. Sweet or savory?
Oh, sweet.
Okay.
savory.
Sweet.
Okay, one spice that reminds you of a childhood kitchen.
Cardamom.
Oh, saffron.
Fennel seeds.
Fennel seeds.
Fusion dish you're most proud of creating. I'm sorry. Okay, go to comfort food when you're missing home. Don't say lasagna.
Go to comfort. Curry, Gujarati curry.
Oh, you don't miss home? Oh, we got thoughts. She goes to therapy. Just kidding. I'm the one in therapy. Don't worry. I make this. It's vagar lobath. It's in my book, but it's the weirdest, strangest recipe. I cannot trace the origins of it. I think my family is the only one that makes it this way. Yeah. No one has ever had it this way. It's like
Now we really need to
there's
get your
yogurt
book.
in it. It almost tastes like risotto. Someone actually was telling me earlier today, yes, that it's basically it's better and easier than khichdi. So that's something.
I've made her vergara bhat, and I was like making it. I'm like, this is not how my ba made it. But yes, very solid. What was the question? Oh yeah,
Comfort food.
comfort food. Mutian patra.
Okay, I'm not going to go into this anymore. This format didn't work so well with us. But before we finish, let's talk about where do we find you?
Yes.
Where should we go? We're here. We want to know more. What's the best way?
So you can find my cookbooks on Amazon, Barnes & Nobles. Highly recommend going to Omnivore if you're local. They sell a bunch of cookbooks, and it's a small business. You can find me at Milk and Cardamom online, and I also have a Diwali ebook coming out soon where I'm sharing 10 really simple eggless cookie recipes. Think like besan ki burfi chocolate chip cookies, kaju pista tea cookies, things like that.
Great.
You can find my cookbook anywhere books are sold. You can find me on Instagram at Khush and OJ. I need to get the Khushbu handle. I'm battling someone for it right now. Don't
And
worry.
your newsletter.
Yeah, and I have a newsletter called Tap is Fine, where I share all kinds of, I cover kind of like the business of eating in that. And you can also find my writing online. It sounds so obnoxious to say this, but if you just Google me, my like pieces come up, yeah. In places like the New York Times, LA Times,
Substack.
Eater, Bon Appetit, yeah, Food and Wine, yeah.
You can visit any Malai store when you're at in the East Coast. We have stores in Brooklyn, Manhattan, DC, and Philadelphia. We are in Northeast grocery stores, and we ship nationwide through Goldbelly. We have a really fabulous Diwali collection coming out starting next week, actually. And then you can follow us at Malai_ice cream. We are expanding, hopefully, to a city near you very soon.
Her Diwali collection every year is like one of the best things to bring to any Diwali celebration. I cannot say this enough. Like my parents actually get mad at me if we don't have Malai at Diwali. Yeah.
She's redeemed herself after she said that I belong in therapy.
You can find me at thejamlab.co, that's my website, or the Jamlab on Instagram, or you can find my cookbooks anywhere where cookbooks are sold. I have a couple of Diwali ebooks on my website that you can buy. It's basically like an amalgamation, or like you want to do a party for 10 people, and I have like right from cocktails to desserts, like about 17 recipes. So that's great. Thank you.
All right, and before we go to Q&A, I have a little guest here who's going to share her delights from each cookbook. Come on over, Ilara.
This is my kid. Here you go. All right.
My first favorite one is a pav bhaji from Amisha Masi's book. The second one is definitely the gulab jamun cake from Pooja Masi's book.
It's the ice cream cake.
That one. And then the third one is the rava dosa from Khushbu Masi's book.
And what about your mom?
Oh, and my mom's is definitely,
Everything.
yeah, everything.
That's the only correct answer.
I don't think I can choose. It would be hard.
Great, thank you very much. All right, so, yeah, big round of applause for... All right, we'll now go to Q&A. And 2 questions, is that what you mean? Okay.
Okay. Yes. Hi, thank you so much for sharing about your process and just everything. I was curious about how you balance, like in your background for your books, the personal and sort of the historical and regional, and just like how you attribute where these recipes are coming from.
For me, because my book is I really wanted to cover like the full Indian American diaspora as much as I could. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't just from my family's perspective. A lot of cookbooks are very personal. Mine has a personal element. Obviously, I'm the narrator of the cookbook, so it's all kind of skewed through my lens anyways, but I reference a lot of recipes or drew a lot of inspiration from chefs around the country that I really love that are from different regions, or like I called my best friend's mom for her, recipe. Her family is from Tamil Nadu, like things like that. So, or I have a Carolyn fried chicken recipe in the book, but that Carolyn fried chicken itself is based off of a recipe from Asha Gomez, who's this amazing chef based out of Atlanta, and she has a wonderful cookbook. And so I messaged her being like, hey, do you mind if I riff on your recipe in my book? And then I'm, adding all these things too, but then I made sure to attribute that in my head note to the recipe too, because giving like credit where credit is due is 100% really important. Like we build off of each other's work all the time, and we're always drawing inspiration from other people, and there's no shame in that whatsoever. Yeah,
like I have a recipe that has orange fennel cupcakes, and that flavor combo I attribute to Pooja and her orange fennel ice cream in the cookbook. A lot of my recipes are a mix of very American and European baking, so I'll kind of give a little bit of background on that, and then dive deeper because I go fairly niche in the desserts sometimes of how my family made those things, because I can only speak from my point of view. So I try to give credit that way, and then hey, this is inspired by my kaki or my mom or whoever it may be. But yeah.
Hello. So my name is Jasleen, and I'm from Yo India TV. It's been amazing. I heard some part of your discussion, and this is an amazing panel, and each one of you has their own speciality. However, my question will go back to one of the differences that I have noted, from India, when we take a vegetable, for example, I'll go with a basic vegetable, bell pepper, for instance, green bell pepper, which is very popular back in India, What I felt is that the flavor of the vegetable itself is different in India versus here. When you make the same aloo capsicum, what we call, in India, it stands out in itself with a very good aroma, with the same recipe that we can use to make it here, same spice level, everything. But when we cook it here in US, I don't know, with the American soil, it just like, it's a little bland to me. I never felt that taste again. I'm sure some of you might have felt that with this and many other vegetables as well. So you being experts, how would you say that we should make it differently, or what should we do to, get what we are really trying to get out of that vegetable?
So I face that dilemma a lot because I came from Mumbai to California, 25 plus years ago, but I faced that dilemma because I was always trying to recreate the same flavors from India over here. It was a big challenge because you're right, you don't get the same flavor. Like okra is the biggest example, I think. The flavor of okra is different over here as compared to the bhindi in India. The bhindi in India is just different. So a few things that I have adapted to is eating locally and eating seasonally. I highly recommend that. It's a big deal for me. I cook seasonally, I cook locally, I cook for my kids so that they get the best flavors and they understand where I'm coming from, where I want to pass my legacy down to them, and I want to make sure it's authentic for them. So that's what I do.
If you guys have not heard of Kula Nursery, I highly recommend checking them out. Kula Nursery is a farm in Petaluma set up by my friend Z, where she grows heritage South Asian produce. I've given her over 100 seeds from my family farm. You can find desi bhindi from her. You can get kadi patta. You can get all the different gourds, dudhis, val, surti papadi, all of the vegetables, and she's been carrying that heritage and growing these items. So if you want to grow them at your home, like growing up where I grew up, We grew everything from joy to dudi to karela, all of it in my backyard, because my mom had the same issue. It doesn't taste the same. It's not as fresh. We're getting it like really late in the season. The tindora is gross. So if you have the space and the ability, grow it yourself. Get the plants from Kula Nursery. Support another small South Asian business. You can visit her farm in Petaluma. She does lots of events, but you can also buy her stuff. Usually she's at various farmers market. I think she pops up at Fremont Farmers Market as well sometimes. Or you can buy her seeds online. She sells the seeds themselves if you want to start them.
And just quickly, obviously the vegetables make a big difference of the types and the soil, but spices also make a really big difference because a lot of the spices in the Indian stores are old, they've been shipped, they've been waiting around for a while, so the fresher the spice, the better. And there's a lot of really cool companies that are working directly with farmers, especially from India, like Diaspora Co. that's actually based out of here. And their spices are just a whole different level. They're so fresh, they're so pungent, really intense, and so they really amp up anything you make with them. Yeah.
And support local farmers. Support the local farmers. Go to the farmers market. It's like a playground. So enjoy it.
Well, thank you all for coming here and spending time both ways, and it's been really lovely talking to you.